Hey, everybody, and welcome back to The Growth Class. I'm Phil Masiello, your host, and today we're joined by two individuals who aren't just thinking about changing the world, they're actively building the tools to do it. Meredith and Bari are the founders of TroubleMakers.org, a hub for those who refuse to accept the way things are as the final answer. They're here today to discuss what it takes to challenge the status quo, spark meaningful disruption, and why sometimes being a troublemaker is exactly what we need. So, Meredith, Bari, thank you for taking the time to come on the show and explain to us what you're doing.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Why don't you take us back, give us a little bit of a background in both of you, and then let's talk about where you are today and how you got there and why you got there. Who wants to go first? Bari, why don't you go first?
Sure. Meredith and I founded Trouble in 2020, and it was on the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which many of your listeners know that that was the time that was meant to give all women the right to vote, which in fact didn't come to be, but it gave a subset of women, privileged white women, the right to vote. And then later in the 60s, the Voters' Rights Act helped advance so that all women could vote. But we found it on that day. It was sort of a race to the launch date because we knew that it was going to happen once. And if we missed it, we wouldn't be able to turn back the clock. So we launched Trouble with the intention of creating a platform and a community that was all about changing the status quo, as you said, and very much about dismantling all as much as possible around the areas that create inequity between women and men. And so we have a chance to highlight and share the messages from courageous disruptors. Those are troublemakers, as we like to call them. And they are generous and they're amazing. And that becomes really the main inspiration for the work that we do.
Meredith?
So we're an online marketplace that interviews troublemakers for good. And those are men and women that care about gender equity. And then we sell cool products and give the profits to organizations doing the good work of promoting gender equity. Basically, health, education, and welfare organizations that are focused on women and girls. And you may not know this, but only 1.9% of philanthropic dollars go to gender equity organizations. So there's a giant gap that we're looking to fill.
It's getting bigger.
Unfortunately.
Not to get political, but it seems like it's getting more of an uphill battle now than ever before.
I would say we never imagined when we started Trouble 6 years ago that we would have experienced such backsliding. It's concerning.
It's a bit concerning for all involved. I think I told you, I have 4 daughters and obviously a wife and, sisters, mothers, grandmothers. And I grew up in a household of all women, aunts, grandmothers, Italian household. And so, it's difficult, I think, and I think that there's so much propaganda that it's really difficult for some people to truly understand what's really happening, in my opinion. This is, what I see out there. Even for the younger generation that are smart, just they're getting influenced by people their own age that are sort of pushing these agendas and then this whole trad wife trend, which I think is just, it's just an agenda. I mean, it's just being pushed because it's not real. There's no way in the world that people can exist on one. Well, I mean, that's not true. I mean, there are some people out there making a lot of money, but most of these trad wives are just influencers that really are making their money off of being influencers. They're not really trad wives, right?
Yes.
Which I think is also pushing things back in a different way. Like I certainly don't want, to come home with my wife in a little skirt every day and making me dinner. It's just not a healthy environment, not a healthy environment.
They're selling a myth.
I think that, sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
They're selling myth. Like, that's all. They're all working women who are talking about women not working. It's so disturbing.
Who are working.
Yeah.
And to the discussion, I mean, it is political. It's turned into even more polarizing political. And the reality is that there's a lot of data, and those data show stubborn stats that haven't moved. And that isn't one person's fault or one category of people's fault. It's societal influences that lead to things like women making 80 cents for every dollar that men make. That's not a woman's problem, a man's problem. It's an equity problem in our society. And that's something that we want to change and have people have an opportunity to be more equal and have more equity. And there are many folks that are committed to that, but it is something that is remarkably stubborn that hasn't changed for many years. And to your point, is only getting worse right now.
Yeah. Why do you think that why do you think that there's a lot of women that aren't supporting the women's movement or the women's rights movement?
Well, I think part of it is a misunderstanding. I think that people are reluctant to have change, especially if they're in a situation that's comfortable and they enjoy their lives. But there are people, I'll speak for myself. I'm very comfortable. I enjoy my life. And all of my life, I've known that I've had access and opportunity to things that many other people don't. And I'm grateful for that, but it doesn't mean that I want it to be limited to people like me who have an opportunity to have that access. So I think for many people, if you're happy, you're comfortable, and you really don't step back and take a perspective that addresses the community, the society, then you can easily say, hey, it's good. Why do I want to change anything? But if you step back and reflect, I think it's pretty hard to do anything but say there are some things that would benefit all of us, whether we're in the have category or the have not category, that would really improve our society and our community. And let's all band together and make some of those changes happen.
Yeah, I don't think about it as much as the haves not supporting it. I just am astounded by the have-nots who support some of these things. And I think to myself, how can you accept the fact that, we want to pull back women's voting rights and women's, rights all around? I mean, it astounds me.
Well,
how do you change that?
Yeah, if you've been told your whole life that you're inferior, we know that at age 5, girls think they're not as good as boys in general. So it happens very young. It's astounding, but girls don't think they're as good. So we're sending messages that are inaccurate from the get-go. So we have to push against that constantly.
How do you change that with what you're doing?
Well, when Meredith and I said, hey, we're at a point in our lives where we can be all in on this, it's been an area that we've experienced personally and also wanted to be mentors and leaders in whatever roles we were in. But this was an opportunity for us to say, we are going to be all in on this. And how do we do that in a way that's going to have the most impact? We looked at creating services to help grow women's confidence, to help all of the structural barriers that get in the way. And what we realized after spending some time studying it is we realized there are many organizations that are set up to make a difference. And many of them are exceptionally capable and really good at what they're doing. And one of the things that they need is more capital. They need to grow. And in order to accelerate the impact that they're having, that would be dramatically enhanced with more capital. So we stepped back and said, why don't we be in the business of generating capital to accelerate the growth of the organizations that are out there doing the good work, fighting the fight every day?
I see. So what you're really doing is you're essentially using your platform to raise capital that gets dispersed to these other organizations that are doing good works, right? Because you can't do it all, right?
Exactly. Barry's a marketing specialist. I have a background in finance. We said, what do we know how to do that's going to have an impact? And we said, there's these great not-for-profits out there doing incredible work like I Have the Right To, which was started by Chessie Prout, and she was assaulted her freshman year in school, and she fought back against the boy and took him to court and was vilified for that. So organizations like that who go into the schools, teach the students about what appropriate behavior is and provide resources are incredible. And we don't need to reinvent that. We need to support that.
Yeah.
So that's what we decided to do.
Yeah.
So we can do that with money, because they all need more money. And we can also do that by growing a Trouble community and using that community to lend eyeballs and education to the work that they're doing. And so that is what we do. We sell stuff, we sell swag. 100% of the profits go to the organizations that are our Trouble Giving partners. And we highlight their work by highlighting their TroubleMakers, the folks at those organizations that are working hard every day. And they're generous in spreading their message through Trouble. And we can use our platform then to bring more attention to the work that they do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I think that there needs to be a lot more attention to it, because we've slid back dramatically, as you said. And, even in the colleges where we've, sort of strong-armed colleges to change their curriculum, or else they lose funding, which I think is just unbelievable. But, and it's not just that. I mean, there's the whole women's health, pulling funding from women's health, and Roe v. Wade and everything that's happened in the last bunch of years. I mean, I always think about, I'm a student of consumerism, and I'm a student of people, and because I'm a marketer, and I always look at people and what motivates them and what drives them. And I just am, I'm floored by how, for lack of a better term, how stupid we've become as a society. And it amazes me how easily manipulated we are. Social media is easily manipulating people. The press is easily manipulating people. I mean, social media in general, I think it's just been very destructive to our youth. Where certainly when you have you have half a brain, you hear something that doesn't sound right, you do a little research and you come up with a conclusion. You don't just take the headline as face value, but people do. And it's amazing to me.
Well, and it's also right. It's so much harder to control or monitor messaging given the incredible increase in volume that is created by social media and other digital media. So, when we used to monitor 5 networks, it's very different today. So different. And as you said, it's just too easy to create content with AI, put it out there. It looks real. It looks even realer as things evolve. And there's just too much of it to monitor.
Yeah. What about, aside from the website, like what else can you do? I mean, do you have a YouTube channel? I mean, you could theoretically be posting content daily, which is real content, and trying to build, a platform that way, because the youth of today really doesn't pay attention to television news or the traditional news channels. They sort of get their news off of these people that they follow on social. YouTube, especially. I mean, my kids, they're all smart kids. They all graduated college. They're all intelligent, but they get their information from online. They don't believe everything, but they still get it. So
we do have a YouTube channel where we feature the interviews with our troublemakers. We would love for people to go to our website, TroubleMakers.org, sign up for our newsletters. We send out regular weekly emails that highlights our troublemakers and the trouble giving organizations. And we'd also love for people to follow us on social at TroubleMakers for good. And we put the content out there. We get some great engagement. And as we've already said, the people that we interview are remarkable. They are people that are fighting the fight every day, making a difference. And the work that they do covers a tremendous number of sectors, like you said, health, cultural trends. There are folks that are for-profit businesses that are focused in a variety of areas. And they're there with a social mission to help make our communities stronger and better.
And then do you go after the larger groups, the people that are, that you're giving the funds to, and getting those people on your channel and getting those people some recognition so that, you sort of snowball it, right? If everybody gets involved and everybody starts talking about it and everybody starts promoting the people that are out there that are doing good, then it becomes a snowball, and that becomes the message, right?
Yes, we absolutely do that. And we found that LinkedIn is a great resource too, because that was surprising. But a lot of our troublemakers that we profile are on LinkedIn, and so they send it out to their networks. And so that's how we grow.
Yeah, LinkedIn, I think, is a little bit better. I spend more of my time on LinkedIn than anything else. I mean, unfortunately, we're an advertising agency, and so we spend a lot of time on social media and studying it. But it just, it's, to me, I can't take it. I have a very difficult time reading the news in the morning. I have a very difficult time with social, so we do it for business, but I can't spend a lot of my time on it. Just aggravates me. But LinkedIn, I do spend some time on it, because generally it's people providing information or providing some sort of factual data about something.
Yes.
There are some lunatics on it, but I think it does a better job of moderating than anything else. But yeah, I can see that, because everybody and every woman who's, an executive or has a job or whatever has a LinkedIn profile, and they're sort of focused on, improvement. So
yes,
I could see that. And you can post your YouTube stuff onto LinkedIn and push it out there. And if you're doing lives, you can push that out as you do it live onto LinkedIn, which becomes a powerful medium, because it's not just the people that follow you that see it. You can push it out live, and more people will see it. Because I guess what I'm saying is it's a bigger issue than just, not to downgrade what you're doing, but two women trying to push this agenda. It's sort of it's like pushing a little stone up a hill when the there's a bigger rock up there. So
yeah, our model is exactly as you're describing, Phil, in that we partner with the troublemaker organization. So they're generous to let us interview them, and we in turn can shine a light on their work, but they are our marketing engine. We don't spend money on marketing, and that's an area that we continue to look at. But the marketing is through our troublemakers, their organizations, and our trouble giving partners. And that allows us to give almost 100% of all of the margin from our sales to to our trouble giving partners. We have a remarkably low burn rate, which is a balance that we try to strike, but we're looking to give away as much money as possible. So we don't invest in paid advertising. We do it exactly in the way that you described.
Yeah, paid advertising is not going to do it. People don't pay attention for social causes and things like that. People aren't going to pay attention to paid ads. But I would think that, I think that social is obviously a better platform. And, how do you get to the youth? Because the youth is really what needs to change, right? I mean, there is a lot of confusion out there. Even my kids, when we have discussions about politics, there's some things that everybody agrees on, but there are some things where I think, where the heck did they get that from? And so I think that there needs to, a targeted effort at the youth. And how do you get to them?
Yeah. Well, we have youngsters on our staff, and that's helpful because they bring a different perspective.
Yeah.
And some of our trouble makers are focused on younger populations. One example that Meredith and I were talking about earlier today is Emily Oster. We featured her. She's a Brown University professor, economics professor, that focuses on new moms and new parents, and she has a remarkable following. And so troublemakers like that get us exposure to some of the younger folks.
Yeah. But I would imagine using, taking a playbook out of, the more conservative side, the ability to use social media in a way like TikTok and where the youth is, TikTok and Reels, to sort of create that messaging using really factual data. Because, one of the problems that people, or that I see on social is it's just words going out that people listen to. There's no fact behind it. It's just words, and people listen to it and believe it. And that just drives me up a wall, because when, if you try and give, and again, you can't change somebody, right? They're going to think what they're going to think. They're going to believe what they believe, right? I watched the thing about flat earthers last night, and this guy, they wanted to disprove that the earth is round. So they went out and did these experiments, and all they did was prove that the earth was round. They did like 4 or 5 experiments, and they still didn't believe it. So they wound up with some cockamamie experiment that proved that the earth was flat. And I mean, after going through, 4 or 5 scientific experiments, they came up with one. And it just astounds me. People are going to believe what they're going to believe. But I think if you can get to the youth and you start hitting it, you'll start to change some mentality, in my opinion.
Yeah. One of the other avenues that we haven't mentioned that I'd love to mention is we also run a number of training events and development events with companies that are very much mission aligned with what we do. So high potential women groups, high potential groups, women and men, in organizations. And we come in and do a session on what it means to be a troublemaker and how they can think about being more courageous in their workplace and setting ambitious goals. And those companies, in lieu of paying us for the events, buy merchandise for all of the attendees. And that's another way where we get great exposure to younger folks and older folks. But a lot of them are younger employees that are high potential within the companies. So that's another avenue of growth.
So if you go into an organization, let's say a business, and you're talking to the people about, the mission, do you find that men are receptive, or do you think they just go through the motions?
Most of them are very receptive. They understand, they are much more aware than when I was starting out in business about the inequities and about comments and about communication and how that impacts the workplace. And they also are starting to value the different voices in the room, because there's great data that you make better decisions when you have. And so the more courageous and disruptive people can be in the workplace, because everybody reverts to the status quo. And so we're saying and teaching people how to not revert to the status quo, and you get better outcomes.
You know, I had a business that was in retail, and we got acquired by a supermarket chain. And I remember like sitting in the room. Every retailer has like the Monday morning meeting where you start going over the numbers and the stores and blah, blah, blah. And then, you look at ads and what worked and what didn't work, and you start crafting other ads. And it amazed me because the number one shopper, right, overwhelmingly is a woman. She's the one who comes to the supermarket, right? Even if the guy goes, right? When I go with my wife every week because we make a thing out of it and I like shopping. But, it's obvious that my wife is sort of guiding the whole thing, right? I can throw stuff in the cart, but at the end of the day, she's the one who's, going to determine. And I sat there one day and I looked around that room. And, you've got all these different departments, right? You've got grocery, you got HABA, you got, and everyone was a guy. And you sit there and talk about the ads and what's going to move the needle. And so I just said, we should get some women in here, like what? Get the admins in here, get somebody else in here to look at this and tell you whether or not that's going to move the needle. And they all just looked at me like I had three heads, because like, what do they know? They don't understand the business. I said, they don't have to understand the business. They have to understand what they want to buy. You're sitting there saying that you think by taking ground beef down 10 cents, it's going to drive the business. Maybe there's something else that maybe is more impactful than ground beef, because you're doing the same thing over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in this room and listened to the ground beef was going on sale for, $1.99. So it makes no sense to me. And it really didn't. It made absolutely no sense to me that there was not a woman in charge of any of this stuff. And then you look at, I don't know if you guys have Wegmans by you, but you look at Wegmans. It's one of the best grocery stores in the country. And you know who runs it? Colleen Wegman and her sister. and it's a very, very well run grocery store. And they have, when you go into their corporate office, they must have, I would say, 60% women decision makers. We did a line on Shopping Channel and a beauty line. We launched it. And this woman, Mindy Grossman, who used to be she worked for Nike Apparel. She worked for Ralph Lauren, whatever, a bunch of places. She wound up taking over the diet place. I can't
Weight
remember.
Watchers.
Yeah, Weight Watchers. But I thought she was a brilliant woman. And it was all women at HSN, all women decision makers. Every department was a woman decision maker. And they all used to sit, when you go in there and you present, they would sit there and they would speak about her, well, you have to talk about her, how is she going to relate to this product? How is she going to relate to the message? And what they're really talking about is the fact that, you're talking on a camera, but the person on the other end is a woman, right? She's the decision maker. And so you have to think about in terms of her. And I'll never forget, we went in there, we did a beauty line, but we also were helping somebody else. And we went in there with this fashion line for this woman, Forbes Riley. She wanted an athletic leisure line. And so this guy that she had with her named it Athleisure. And I said, that's just a terrible name. It's a category. It's not a brand. It's a category. I said, and don't go in there and say athleisure, because you're going to get thrown out. And he's like, no, it's a great name. It's a great name. It's a great name. And I kept saying to Forbes, I said, Forbes, it's not a good name. And she's like, we went in there and here's Mindy, and like, she's got all her people. And she said, well, what's the brand name? And the guy says athleisure. And she looks at me and she goes, that's a category. That's not a name of a brand. I said, I told you, dude, I tried to save you. But I thought she was wonderful. But that place was so well run. She turned it around and she fired all the guys that were really in charge and brought in all women. And then it turned around because, that's who's buying how can I make a decision? I can make a decision. Like, I don't know a guy who would buy a pair of, or clothing for their wife. That's just off limits, right? You don't buy furniture for the house without your wife. It just doesn't happen, right? You can buy different things, but there's certain things that you can't do because you don't understand it. Like I would never be, I go home, my wife goes out shopping. I go home and I find new clothes in my closet. She doesn't come right out and say, you're dressing terribly. She just buys new clothes for me. It says these would look better on you. And she's right. So, anyway, that's my rant.
Yeah, well, and I think we love this story. And going back to Meredith's point, I mean, and your point too, there's hard research that shows the improvement in company performance. Not if it's all women, all men, all anything. Really, the mixture of thought and backgrounds and experiences is what makes teams perform better. And so we look forward to a day where it's more equal. Not all women, not all men, but a really good mix of all different types of folks that are going to create better outcomes. And the research proves that over and over.
Yeah, I agree. I think a good blend, but I just see a different world sometimes when I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of businesses, and I see the older men don't have the same outlook on women coming in. They look at it entirely differently. And I just think, dude, you got to get with it, man. Like, this person's brilliant and you're like downplaying what she's got to say. It's amazing to me. So anyway.
I worked with my brother and my father in a family business, and they get pregnant and they were like, he's never coming back. By the third kid, they were like, can you come 2 weeks later and like attend this meeting? And I was if I can bring the kid.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of, sort of the beauty of working remotely is that women can, they can be home for the kids. And I've always been an advocate of remote work. We did Raw Essentials, which was a beauty line. We were totally remote. We were constantly on the road. We had people all over the country doing stuff because Carol and I were just going out. We were at HSN. We were up in Canada. We were in Europe. We were just doing shows. We were at Sephora, Ulta, blah, blah, blah. So we were we were never in an office. And so we just had people everywhere. And we had a lot of young women doing things, social media, design, formulation. And they were all home and they loved it and what I found was that they worked actually longer than if they were in an office because they may work odd hours, right? Because, it's got, okay, I'm not working between, 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. because I got to get the kids ready for school. And then they're at school and I'm working. Then I get them off the bus and I go back to work at 7:00 at night after I feed everybody. But they work till like, midnight and stuff. You're going, dude, you got to slow down. But, so
and did you see the new study that just came out about the CEOs who are requiring everybody to be in the office? It's all about ego. It's about performance. And that penalizes women because we don't want to give up our kids to be successful. We don't want to sacrifice our kids to be successful. And we can be, because we're willing to do what you just described. But the flexibility is key.
100% it's about ego. 100%. They want to walk around like a fiefdom. I got all these people in the cubes. This is my world. I can call people and, it makes absolutely zero sense to me. I don't want the overhead, first of all. I hate having it. We had offices. We shut them down and I'm happy without them because it's so much aggravation that I don't have to worry about. And, but yeah, it's easier to hire people. We have people that work for us that have their kids. Sometimes the kids get up on the calls with babies and there's nothing better than babies and puppies. So, that'll brighten your day, but women and people are happier when they're like, I'm happier when I'm home and my dogs are with me. If I would love to have babies again, but unfortunately we have 5, they're gone. They're in college and stuff. They're all done with college, but I think everybody's happier when you're around like babies and puppies. So,
well, and the research also shows that in families where both parents are able to work remotely, the men do play more of a shared role in those responsibilities. They see what's going on. Everybody sees what's going on. You coordinate calendars, you try to stagger calls, and the studies show that there's a 28% increase among shared parenting when that kind of situation exists. So flexibility all around.
Yeah, I mean, my wife is a SVP at a senior living company. They have places. They have like 80 locations from Virginia up to New Hampshire, and she's in charge of ops of what do you call it? IT and marketing. And so it's a big job, right? And there's also like a real estate component to it. But my life was more flexible. It always was, because I founded my own businesses after we did the skincare. I had a shaving business. I had a warehouse down the road, so I could work from home and so we still had 3 young ones, right? 2 of them were in high school and college, but we had 3 young ones. So my wife had to be in the office. I didn't. So I would get up. I'd make sure everybody got on the bus, make sure everybody had their lunch and got on the bus. And then I went to work. But if something happened during the day, I could leave, and then I would be home. I'd get home at to get them off the bus. I could still work from home. And I loved it. I thought it was just the greatest. And my wife, she used to say she felt guilty. I was like, what are you feeling guilty about? I love it. I'd take them to their errands. I just thought it was fantastic, because I think that fathers don't spend enough time with their kids to really get to know them or really understand who they are as people. Right. And I think that the kids don't really get to see like their parents in a different light, right? It's always the mom taking care of everything. But when they say, because, it became like, okay, well, mom doesn't have to be the only one to take care of us. He's pretty capable, which they used to say to me. Well, you did a good job today. I was like, okay, good.
My
Anyway.
husband used to call for a babysitter, and then the babysitter's mother would call me back.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not responsible for that. He's getting the babysitter.
Yeah. Well, it got to the point where the school would call me, which I thought was great, and then so the kids, I think it took a load off my wife, but you got to co-parent, you got to do everything together. One person's got more to do than the other person. You pick up the slack. I loved it. I loved having kids. I thought it was like the greatest thing in the world. Kids and dogs. It's my favorite thing to do. Anyway, but listen, we're almost out of time. So where do people find you, and where can they support you?
TroubleMakers.org, TroubleMakers for Good, and online, and follow us on social media, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook.
Is it all TroubleMakers? When you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, et cetera, is it all consistent? Is it TroubleMakers?
For Facebook and Instagram, it's TroubleMakers for Good. On LinkedIn, it's Trouble.
Unfortunately.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and thank you for sharing. And I think it's great, and I hope everybody supports you. So
thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And thank you for being part of the community and like-minded. We really appreciate it.
Well, I'm surprised. I'm surrounded by women. If I wasn't, I think I'd get beat. No.
Great.